Welcome to Careers in Accounting. Today we have Kim Rutherford. Kim is a Senior Director of Tax Planning and Treasury at Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals. Mallinckrodt has a long history, the family, with WashU, so we're very pleased to have you representing them on campus today. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So Kim, maybe to get started, can you talk to us about how you became interested in accounting and started your career?
Yeah. So it actually started at a young age with my grandparents. They owned their own business. It was a small business. My parents worked there and they were there all the time. So I pretty much grew up, living in that lifestyle, in
Mm-hmm.
the business lifestyle, and really got me interested in it, just in the numbers and how a business works. Then I had an accounting course in high school. It ended up being, half personal finance, how to write a check, how
Yeah.
to balance a checkbook. But it also dove into financial statements and balance sheets and income statements. And I really enjoyed, getting to understand not just, you go and you sell something as a business, but how does that turn into something of an asset on a balance sheet or into money, into profit. So that got me on the track to
Mm-hmm.
get my accounting major. I still wasn't 100% sure if, I wanted to go into the accounting field. It was between that and law. So I ended up going to law school after my first year doing a criminal course or criminal law course or constitutional law. I knew that, I just wasn't fit for a trial lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and still really wanted to do something in the business world. So I ended up getting my concentration in tax. And that led me to the opportunity of being able to work at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Okay. Full disclosure,
Mhm.
Kim and I worked together at PwC so for a number of years. So you started at PwC, and can you just talk about your early part of your career and what you were working on and that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So PwC did a great job of giving you a well-rounded career. So they definitely throw you in and get you doing the work very quickly. But they had a program where you went and did rotations in different fields. So I actually did a rotation in the state and local tax team. And then I went into international tax law and really focused on the tax planning side of it, as well as, some of the compliance stuff. But, in those early years, it's, doing modeling, doing tax returns, diving into the different tax law,
Hmm.
working with national specialists on various technical issues. The other thing that I found really interesting is, you get to go in front of clients very early
Hmm.
on. So the partners that I worked with were great, yourself included, and really gave us the opportunities to go meet the clients and get that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, and I think you would agree
Hmm.
with this. The degree of specialization that you
Hmm.
see once you get in there is kind of startling
Yes.
because you think tax might be a very niche
Hmm.
area in accounting, but there's specialties within
Hmm.
accounting firms that are kind of mind-boggling
Yeah.
once you see what people actually do.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It is not just filling out a federal tax return. That's not just, what they have to offer. It's all different types of fields.
Yeah. So some of the stuff that you and I were working
Mhm.
on, we had a client that was very involved in mergers and acquisition activity, both internally and then doing external transactions. So you and I
Mhm.
worked on a lot of that during our time together. Um, so during that time, you're getting a lot of training
Mhm.
from the firm and you're getting a lot of experience
Mhm.
working on things. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for the professional that's at that 5-year stage of their career and the opportunities
Mhm.
that come to them?
Yep. It really means a lot. I mean, when you go into the corporate field and they see you have a Big Four background, it means a lot. They look at you, as they know you have that training, that you came up in Big Four, that you have that experience. But it also, like you said, it gives us those opportunities to go into clients and meet different people.
Hmm.
And by meeting people and developing those relationships, that really does open up a wide amount of opportunities. That's actually how I ended up moving from Big Four into corporate accounting is, it was the people that I worked for, it was or worked with back at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then it was also the client that I was working on.
Yeah, I
So
like to think of it as the unfortunate part of representing the firm at that point in time is you're putting your best people on your
mhm,
best accounts. And there's like this song and dance where they're quasi interviewing
mhm,
you and you're quasi interviewing them because you may not want to go work there. You may
mhm,
want to work there, and they're making judgments about your performance as well. And
mhm.
then sometimes those two meet,
Yep.
and then you come into my office and tell me that you're taking another role. So those are
Mhm,
fantastic things about starting your career in accounting. I like to
mhm,
think of it as the firms do a very good job of taking you out of your school
mhm,
and then continuing your training. Your training will go on throughout your lifetime of your career. And that person that's in that 5 to 6 year range is very,
mhm,
very marketable
mhm,
in the profession. Um, and so Talk a little bit about going directly to work for a corporation out of
Mhm.
undergrad versus spending some time in an accounting firm and then deciding to go and work for a corporation.
Yeah, I won't speak for everybody, but in my experience, it really does change the path that you take. Going to Big Four accounting and working, I would say up through manager, really puts you on a different path. When I went into the corporate field, compared to other people who went straight to the corporate field, just the opportunities that are there and available for you
Hmm.
are a lot different. The titles you get, the salaries you get, can end up being a lot different than if you start in the corporate field and then try and work your way up. It's just a much slower progression. I feel
Yeah.
like Big Four has a very set progression for you, and it's pretty quickly. It's associate for 1 to 2 years, senior associate, for 1 to 2 years, and so on and so forth. And you really get higher up in a higher title quicker at Big Four than
Yeah,
you
you would
would in the
not
corporate
that
world.
same time at the corporation, if you spent
Yes.
your time there, you
Hmm.
wouldn't be at the same level
Right.
as when you start.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're in tax planning and
Hmm.
treasury now. So the other thing about accounting that's very helpful is you get to see lots of different things,
Hmm.
and your career can kind of morph over time a little bit into different areas than where you
Hmm.
started. So can you
Yep.
talk a little bit about what you're doing now
Yep.
and what led you kind of to get involved in the treasury function?
Yeah, absolutely. So, started in international tax at PwC. Then I went over to a corporation and I worked more as tax planning. But being in a corporation, you get to work with all the different groups within the corporation. There's lots of different segments. There's, SEC accounting, there's treasury, there's all different groups that you have to learn how to work with and interact with. But I got the opportunity to work in the treasury group because my current boss ended up becoming the VP of treasury.
Hmm.
And he asked if I would be interested in, doing staying with tax, but also diving into the treasury side a little bit. So now I get to do a lot of cash forecasting, which I'm a dork. I enjoy. And then also really diving into kind of our debt agreements and making sure that, what the company does as a whole doesn't footfall it against any of the restrictions that we have with our creditors.
And you probably
So,
never envisioned that when you came out of undergrad
no.
with an accounting degree as to what you'd be doing right now in your
No,
career.
definitely not. And not only my trajectory, but also just seeing how other people
Yeah.
have, how their career paths have taken. There was a person that worked in tax at the corporation that I'm at that is now the CEO of our generic segment. So there definitely are a lot of growth areas. There's people that change from payroll to, SEC accounting. There's a lot of different fields that can be opened up by having that accounting degree and by being able to pull up a financial statement and understand what it
Yeah.
means.
Knowing the core base
Hmm.
and then branching out from that is just fascinating from
Yes.
accountants. So we've seen lots of people
Yep.
do great things different than just pure accounting. So along those lines, can you talk about
Mhm.
an interesting project maybe you've recently worked on?
Yeah, so right now we're actually working on a disposition of one of our assets. It's been pretty interesting. The parts that I've been able to be on, it's diving into the financial statements of those entities that we're selling and, trying to value them to make sure that we're, when you sell an asset as a business, there's lots of entities, there's various assets that go with it. But you get one set of proceeds and you have to allocate those out. So I'm looking right now on how to allocate those proceeds out amongst the corporation and where that money goes and how it's going to come in, how's it going to flow out. So it's been pretty interesting to dive into that.
And those are not
Hmm.
easy projects,
No.
right? They take a long period of
Yes.
time and they're very intertwined with other parts of the organization. So your scenario is a
Hmm.
disposition, so it's untangling
Hmm.
all of that and getting ready for a new owner of that
Yes.
asset. That's
Yep.
easy to say, hard to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Takes a,
There's a lot of things that go into it that you just wouldn't even think about it. Accounting systems, everything
yeah.
down to the wire.
So one of the stereotypes of the profession that you hear is that it's redundant, it's repetitive, it's the
Mhm.
same as last year. That project doesn't sound anything like the same as last year. It's unique in all of its different features. So can you just, when I say that to
Mhm.
you and your experiences in the field, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is I haven't had 1 year that's been the same as last year.
Yeah.
There's so many different projects to work on, and they're all kind of based in the same thing, but they all have different facets to them. There's so many different laws that you have to look at. There's so many changes to the laws that you have to look at. Nothing is staying the same right now in our field. So you get new opportunities each and every year. I joke that I wouldn't mind a little repetition every once in a while.
Yeah. And so the way you phrase that is,
Mhm.
is appealing to me is that business is always changing, right?
Mhm.
So you have that going on where the C-suite is making
Mhm.
adjustments to the portfolio and initiatives that they have. Then you overlay that with the political landscape. We have
Mhm.
an election coming up in the United States. Depending on how that goes, there could be change in the United States. There's also changing around the world, and your
Mhm.
organization is a global organization. So you have to keep track of what's happening
Mhm.
around the globe, what's happening in the United States, and all your
Mhm.
CFO wants to know is certainty and projections,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Makes it hard.
Very hard to do,
Yes.
but kind of job security
Mhm.
and interest
Yes.
level because there's a need for
Mhm.
the business people to get information, and you're trying to help them do what they're trying to do in a
Mhm.
constantly evolving landscape, right?
Yes. Yep. But if it was easy, they wouldn't need us. So
Exactly,
it's it's a
exactly. If
good
it's
thing.
same as last year, then
Right.
there wouldn't be that need for people.
Mhm.
Um, we hear the accounting pipeline problem,
Mhm.
that there's less young people being interested in the career. Um, how do you see that playing out on a day-to-day basis, and what that means for the person who chooses to
Mhm.
come into the field?
Yep. I mean, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for someone choosing to come into the field. We are struggling to find good talent at this point, for various reasons. But for somebody who is driven and talented and wants to try this out, I think there's definitely many opportunities. I think companies are, trying their best to find good talent and they're willing to pay for it and compensate it.
Yeah, it's the backdrop of that
Hmm.
complexity that's not going away. The
Right.
change, the pace of change is maybe going to get worse,
Hmm.
not better. And the degree of companies being global, I don't think is
Hmm.
going to change either, right? They're going to
Right.
try to find the right customers in the right
Hmm.
locations, the right supply chains, wherever those are. So all that is still going to happen, and you're trying to
Hmm.
help them. So we hear
Right.
a lot about young people being interested in consulting.
Hmm.
That's effectively what you're doing. Is you're trying to help the business do what they
Hmm.
need to do in this kind of murky landscape. And
Yep.
so that's I think I look at it as a opportunity
Hmm.
for a young person to come in. And those that choose to do that instead of
Hmm.
following the crowd, maybe go towards accounting and take a look
Hmm.
at that and see if that's of interest to them. One of the other stereotypes I think we encounter is work-life
Hmm.
balance and how it's out of balance. And you hear
Hmm.
busy season and, oh, you work 90 hours, you work 80 hours this week.
Hmm.
And um, I did not experience that in my career.
Hmm.
Certainly there were ebbs and flows. I think that's in any profession. You're going to be busy at times. You're not going to be busy at times. Um, if a transaction's happening, you're going to be a little bit more busy.
Right.
So, can you have a family? You have
Hmm.
other responsibilities in your life. How do you balance things with your work
Hmm.
responsibilities and your non-work responsibilities?
Yep. Well, I mean, like you said, there are ebbs and flows, right? So there are times that you're busy, there's times that you're less busy. But I think a big part of it comes down to just having an employer that allows for flexibility. So it's not necessarily that, you're not working at all. It's just the hours of the day that you're working, that they can be more flexible. So I was really lucky at PwC. You, as well as other partners there, were very flexible. I had a child while I was working there. And I was able to leave at a good time to be able to go and get him from daycare. And if there was something that needed to be done, we all knew that it was going to get done. It's about building that trust and that relationship to make sure that the work gets done. But then having that flexibility that, it may not be from the hours from 8 to 5. I may need to leave at 4 that day or work from home one day because my child's sick. So I have been able to find that balance, luckily. And the employers have been great. And I think post the pandemic, it's been even better. I only go into the office 2 days a week. I work from home the other 3 days, and it really gives the flexibility to pick my kids up from school on those days. And, I'm able to make it to all of their baseball games and soccer games and really enjoy that family life as well.
Yeah.
But it's just working with your employer to gain that flexibility.
And it's really that trust
Hmm.
amongst the professionals that
Right.
I rely on you,
Hmm.
and I know you're going to do your part. And
Hmm.
at this point in time, I'm going to do my part at this point in time, and it'll come together. I like to think of it as it's one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is it
Hmm.
forced us to learn how to do that and do that effectively.
Hmm.
And we've taken those good parts and continued those. Um, one thing I know firms are dealing with, and I'm sure Mallinckrodt has
Hmm.
dealt with as well, it's just how do you balance the remoteness versus the
Hmm.
togetherness? And be interested in your
Hmm.
thoughts on that because what I have seen is the more senior people people with lots of experience
Mhm.
work amazingly remotely,
Mhm.
right? They can juggle things, and you're not wasting time on the commute
Right.
and necessarily getting ready as we
Mhm.
would if we were going in person for a day of work. But training younger people
Mhm.
and the collaboration aspect. Can you just talk about what are your thoughts about the how do you balance the two?
Yeah. I mean, I think the keyword is balancing, right? It's trying to make sure that the people that need more of that collaboration are able to get it. So working with your team. But, we work 2 days in the office and 3 days at home. And for our team, it has worked well. When we've onboarded someone, the people that are onboarding them have come into the office more just to help build that
Hmm.
relationship. I do People may not like this. I do think that being in the office sometime is necessary. We worked through the COVID era. It was a good year and a half that we were 100% at home. And it made it very, very hard to bring on new people because they didn't have that relationship. One of the things that keeps people there is building that relationship. So it was important to have some time in the office to keep those relationships.
Yeah, there's all the little small times
Hmm.
that really make a difference in a young person's. Like you're done
Yes.
with a conference call or a
Hmm.
video meeting and the client's off the phone and you talk about, okay, well, that part didn't go so well, or
Right.
we need to work on this particular aspect to come back to them instead of
Hmm.
if everybody's on video,
Just
they're all like trying to hit the X button to
yes.
get off the video.
Oh yeah.
So it's just those little things going to lunch,
Hmm.
hearing what's going on, what other groups are doing, that type of thing. You just
Right.
learn a lot from that. So
Yep.
I, my advice to young people is don't just rush to work remotely
Hmm.
because I think for a young
Right.
person, there's a lot to be gained just by those little instances
Hmm.
with a more senior person.
Absolutely.
The other issue I think the profession is facing is the starting salaries.
Mhm,
They pale in comparison to other business related professions at the start. Um, what I've tried to get people to think about is your near
mhm,
term salary opportunities. So, what would you be making in 3 to 5 years? And then
mhm,
what can you make on the top end? And that's where I think accounting does really, really well.
mhm,
So, you're not going to start at this level and then gradually increase if you're a high performer. But
mhm,
can you talk about your experience and then what you've seen others, maybe how their compensation levels have?
mhm,
You don't have to give us
mhm,
numbers, but I'm interested just in your qualitative experience as to
mhm.
what has done for your career as the years went.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting as an associate at PwC, the salary was lower, but if you are ranked higher during these rating periods, generally each year you would have an increase in your salary as well as a bonus. And those increases could range from 10 to 15% depending on where you're ranked. And you add that year over year, every over year. And, by the time you get to that 3, 4, 5 year, you've doubled your starting salary. Not only that, like I said early or a little bit ago, PwC has a very accelerated progression on your career. So associate, senior associate, manager, you're getting a promotion every couple years. With those promotions come bigger salary increases. So while you may start lower, it rapidly progresses in those early years as well as those later years when you get up to the director standpoint or the senior director standpoint. I will tell you, I've been very fortunate in what I've been able to make and the bonuses and things like that. But there's definitely a lot of opportunity there for someone just on the technical side, but also as the salary side. So
Yeah, and so the what I'm hearing through the grapevine is
mhm,
the starting salaries are going up.
mhm,
The firms are trying to compete. These firms are not going away. They're very
mhm,
successful. They've been run for decades. The partners there will
mhm,
react to the pipeline shortage. So that's the good news is they
mhm,
tend to go up. But I do think that year over year increases in very short order when you're
mhm,
looking backwards.
right.
Your life can change,
Oh yeah.
and your life can change as well when you make that jump to
Mhm,
out of public accounting into a corporation if you so choose, such as
mhm,
you did. I've had many conversations of young people coming in and telling
mhm,
me what they would get in the market, and
mhm,
it's kind of shocking sometimes, and but that's another way you can really pop your salary as well
mhm,
is making that career decision.
mhm,
Last topic, beyond pure technical skills, whatever a young aspiring accountant, whatever subspecialty there that
mhm,
has their interest, really ramping up on those technical
mhm.
skills and building that knowledge base. What other areas do you suggest them to work on while they're here in school?
Well, I hated hearing this when I was in college, so I hate to say it, but I think it is very true. It's those soft skills. It's learning how to network with people. It's learning how to give presentations, how to speak up in front of a group. Because if you go into Big Four or even in corporations, you're going to be asked to present on something at some point.
Hmm.
So it's learning how to do that, learning how to take a complicated topic and sum it up in 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long you get with the client or with the CEO. It's really working on those communication skills.
Yeah, and you and I had
Mhm.
both some angst on doing that in our
Yes.
early parts of our career, and I think you would agree.
Mhm.
It's a learned behavior.
Yes.
The more you do it, the easier it
Mhm.
gets.
Yep.
Used to fret it, now you don't even fret it at all. But it's taking that very complicated subject matter that you're
Mhm.
working on and conveying it to a client that might not want to be brought into all the
Mhm.
details, or the executive who doesn't have time for all the details,
Right.
but you need to make them appreciate the
Mhm.
complexity of the problem, and then give them something they can action on. I think
Mhm.
that's the skill that can't be replaced, and will really, in the latter parts of your career, be very rewarded,
Mhm. Yeah.
no matter where you are in your career.
Yep, absolutely, and you're right, and when I was in the college stage or even high school, it terrified me to get up and give a presentation, but it is something that you can overcome, and, you just unfortunately have to do it. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Just gotta keep doing it.
I had one professor here who says that if it feels uncomfortable
Mhm.
to you, that means you probably need to
Mhm.
work on it
Right.
and practice it. But I think we can both attest that
Mhm.
just getting out of your comfort zone and doing it gets easier.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. Well,
Okay.
Kim, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time and sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.